We are the third day of a new cycle. We're now doing the negative commandments, prohibitions, 365. We begin. The first mitzvah of negative commandments is not to consider the thought that there is another divinity aside from God. As states, and you shall have no other gods before me, second of the Ten Commandments, right? Not to make an idol, not to make oneself or have one made for oneself by others. Do not make an idol for yourself. Okay. Or in the third, not to make false gods even for others. As states, do not make molten gods for yourselves. Um, not to make images for decoration, even when one does not worship them. States do not make a representation of any of them. Well, that is with me.
Number 3 says, do not to make false gods even for others, but then it says the verses do not make molten gods for yourself. So is that saying like even for yourself, even if it's for us, like if
Yeah, you know what? The way I don't know why Rambam he doesn't necessarily quote the full verse, so we don't get the full sense of it.
okay.
Yeah, good question because it sounds like it's for yourself, not for others, right? So we'd have to look at the verse there because I don't remember it now. But he's not quoting the whole thing, and I'm not certain why. If we'll later on, maybe we'll take a look there and see
Right.
that yourself, and maybe it says for others. Actually, you know what? Just out of curiosity, Leviticus 19, it's next week's parsha, I think. Or the week, yeah, next week. 19:4. Oops. No, not next week's week. Just out of curiosity, since we're talking.
Hello? Hi, do you mind calling me back in 20 minutes, please? Okay. This number? Okay.
Uh-huh. So, so it's just based on those words. The way Rashi understands it is that um, we already said don't make for yourself idols, right?
Yeah.
So this is an addition, right? That's the second of the Ten Commandments. So what is this saying? It's saying don't make yourself for others.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's how Rashi
Make sure you
explains.
make yourself to give us.
Exactly. Okay, number 5. Do not bow to any false gods, even though they are not generally worshipped by bowing down before them. Do not bow down to them. Number 6, not to worship false gods with the types of service with which they're customary to worship them. Do not serve them, as it states. Not to offer one's son to Moilech. It states, do not give any of your children to offer to Moilech.
No child sacrifice.
Actually, it's interesting. It translates here, do not one's son. In the Hebrew, it doesn't say son. Just don't give anyone over. So I don't know why he translates his son over here when it's not that in the Hebrew. You know, I guess maybe it was only sons that it was done with, that kind of idol worship. Maybe that's why, but son or daughter. Okay. Not to perform deeds associated with an ov, as it states, do not turn to an ovas. This is all like, soothsayers and that kind of stuff, different kinds. Not to perform deeds associated with Yidayni, they say do not turn to Yidayim. Not to take interest in worship of false gods, as it say do not turn to false gods. Huh? I think that might be with a crystal ball. I forget. We're gonna learn it in a couple of weeks in the parsha. We're gonna have it. I just don't recall the distinction, but if I recall correctly. Not to erect a pillar for purposes of worship, as it states, do not erect a pillar for yourselves. Not to make a hewn stones upon which to prostrate yourselves. Shall not place hewn stones. Not to plant a tree on the temple premises, as is do not plant an Asherah or any other tree. So there was a form of worship called an Asherah, and so you're not allowed to do that or any tree, right? People used all different types of things, right? They again, look, we had here hewn stones and trees that were used in worship, so you're not allowed to do that. 14.
I don't worship in trees.
Yeah. Or it was, representing either it was actual idolatry or they felt that it was representing. That's how it began. We'll see when we learn that in Rambam. Not to take an oath on a false god as requested by one of its worshippers, nor to have one of them take an oath on their false gods. It says, any of the other gods you shall not mention, nor should it be heard from your mouth. So you don't take an oath on the New Testament, in other words.
Okay.
Not to act as a missionary, a mediach, to persuade the Jews to worship false gods, and the name of our other gods shall not be heard from your mouth, as the sages taught that this is a prohibition against acting as a missionary for the worship of false gods.
You can't say the name JC.
That's not what this said over here. Here it says as an agent on their behalf.
Okay.
In other words, you're not serving, you're just getting other people to serve, right?
Okay.
You're not making a false god, you're just inspiring them to serve.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't go door to door with their pamphlets and, knock and say that, right? Each one, each one's got a different nuance to it, right? On taxes, a missionary maces to persuade an individual Jew to worship false gods, as it says in regard to such missionaries, and they shall not continue to do so. So the first one was as acting as missionary. Here it's to persuade. Okay, not to show affection to a maces, as it states, do not show appreciation for him. Not to reduce one's hatred for a maces, as it says, do not listen to him. We're talking about here people who are actively working to take people away from Hashem to bring them to some idolatry, right?
Yeah.
Not to try to save a maces, but rather to see it that he is executed. The state says you don't have mercy upon him.
Wait, so I thought Macy meant like a false idol, like a idol or something like that, but does it mean like an idol worshiper or?
No, it means no. We had it missionary. Look at 16.
Missionary.
Look at 16.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Right. Number 19, not to try to save maces, but rather to see that he's executed. Okay, we did that, right? Not to have mercy upon him. We're doing a favor for such a person, because execution by court of law is an atonement for him. What he's doing is the worst thing that could be done is to take a person away from Judaism and bring them to another faith or another paganism.
Is a big problem.
Huge. Yeah, huge. Yeah. For a person whom a maces tried to convince not to advance any arguments on behalf of the maces, as they say, do not have pity upon him. Or a person whom a maces for the person whom a Macy's tried to convince not to withhold any evidence he is aware of that would incriminate the Macy's, and he not try to cover up for him. Do not benefit from ornaments that have adorned false gods. Do not covet the gold and silver which is upon them. Not to rebuild an apostate city to its former stature, so it states, and shall never be rebuilt. Not to benefit from the property of an apostate city, as it says, not let nothing that has been condemning cling to your hand.
This be a problem though, if you're a Jewish person and you own like.
By the way, this is only, this is talking about Jews over here,
Yeah, we are.
right?
So if you're a Jewish person and let's say like you want to invest in like a proper, like there's an old like nunnery or something and you want to buy it so that you can like rent out the rooms or something.
That's
that
a
would be-
different story.
Okay, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, because you're not, that's a different question, but we haven't, here number 24, not to benefit of property of an apostate city means that apostate city is like 50% plus of the city is idolatrous.
Yeah, so Montreal.
Yeah, I'm talking about a Jewish city, not a non-Jewish city. Let's talk about Jews over here.
Okay.
I'm not talking about non-Jews who are right, who are pagan worshipers, right? Or believe in even a JC. It's not even speaking about that. This is speaking about Jews.
Okay.
I mean, there is also for non-Jews that there are 7 Noahide laws, right?
Yeah.
But that's a little different. It's not the same.
Okay.
Not the same. Not the same. Okay. I unfortunately I have to go because I have let's
Thank you, Rafa.
All right.
Okay, go
Thank
to.
you.
All right, so
Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos.
Thank you.